It was supposed to be a simple evening, a dinner to celebrate my son's promotion. I'd spent 2 days cooking, setting the table, polishing the old silver that used to belong to my mother. It wasn't fancy, just home. That's what I'd always wanted my house to feel like for them. But the moment Lily walked in, my daughter-in-law, I knew something was wrong. Her smile was too tight, her tone too sweet. I'd learned over the years that Lily's sweetness was a warning, like the silence before thunder. "Everything looks nice," she said, glancing at the table as she shrugged off her coat. "You've really gone all out." Again, my son, Ben, kissed my cheek and went straight for the wine. "Mom, you didn't have to do all this. We could have just ordered something." I smiled anyway. I wanted to. It's your big night. Dinner started out fine, at least on the surface. Laughter here, small talk there. But under the table I could feel the current. Sharp glances, whispered comments between them. I stayed quiet, the way I always did when Lily was in one of her moods. And then, halfway through dessert, it happened. Ben excused himself to take a work call, leaving just the two of us at the table. Lily folded her napkin slowly, then looked up with eyes that no longer pretended to be kind. "You know, Margaret," she said, voice calm but cold, "you really don't know how to stay out of things." I blinked. "I'm sorry?" "At the party last month, the one for my parents' anniversary, you told everyone that Ben paid for the venue. That wasn't your place." "I didn't tell everyone," I said, confused. "Someone asked and I just—" "You embarrassed me," she cut in sharply. "You made it look like I can't handle anything without your help. You ruined that night for me." I stared at her, stunned. "Lily, I would never—" She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping the floor. "You always say that, but you're always there, inserting yourself, making me look bad. I'm tired of pretending everything's fine when you're the reason we can't have peace in this family." Ben walked back in, just as she started crying. Loud, practiced tears that filled the room. "She's always doing this, Ben," she cried. "I try, but she twists everything." He looked between us, lost, unsure whom to believe. "Mom?" I opened my mouth to defend myself, but the words wouldn't come. Years of trying to keep the peace had taught me silence. So I stood there, shaking, watching, as Lily cried in my son's arms, and as the look in his eyes shifted from confusion to disappointment. By the time they left that night, my heart was in pieces. But what Lily didn't know, what no one knew, was that ever since the argument started months ago, I'd begun recording our conversations on my phone, not to trap her, just to protect myself. And this time, it had caught everything. Every cruel word, every lie. I hadn't planned on using it. But that night, staring at the cold, untouched dessert, I realized something. Lily wanted a war, and I finally had proof of the truth. The next morning, I woke to a silence that felt heavier than sleep. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Messages from friends, from Ben, from Lily. I stared at the one from my son first. "We need to talk. What happened last night? Lily's really upset." I could almost hear his voice, tired and frustrated. I typed 3 different replies before erasing them all. Everything I wanted to say sounded defensive, desperate. The truth didn't need to beg. Instead I wrote, "Come by tonight. Both of you. I'll explain everything." The rest of the day I moved through my chores like someone walking underwater. Folding laundry, feeding the cat, wiping a counter already clean. But under every movement the same thought pulsed. He believes her. My son thinks I hurt his wife. By 7, their car pulled into the driveway. I stood by the window watching Lily step out first. Perfect posture, eyes hard. Ben followed slower, his face pale with tension. When they came inside, the air felt thick enough to choke on. "Mom," Ben said quietly, "I just want to understand. Lily said you accused her of lying in front of everyone. Is that true?" "No," I said, voice steady. "That's not what happened." Lily crossed her arms. "Oh, come on, Margaret, you humiliated me." Everyone heard it. I looked at her, then at Ben. "Do you remember when I started recording our visits a few months ago? You both teased me about it. How I said my memory wasn't what it used to be." Ben frowned. "Yeah? What about it?" I picked up my phone from the counter and tapped play. Lily's voice filled the room, clear, sharp, undeniable. "You embarrassed me," her recorded self said. "You made it look like I can't handle anything without your help." My own voice followed, shaking but calm. "Lily, I would never—" Then hers again, louder. "You're the reason we can't have peace in this family." The room went still. You could hear the sound of our breathing over the recording. Ben looked from me to his wife, confusion turning into realization. You said she ruined the party, but she didn't say anything like that." Lily's face flushed. "You're really going to believe a recording? She probably edited it." "It's time-stamped, Lily," I said quietly. "From last night, I haven't touched it." For a moment, she opened her mouth, then closed it again. The fight drained from her expression, replaced by something sharper. Fear. Ben sank onto a chair, rubbing his forehead. "I can't do this right now." "Ben," she started, but he stood, shaking his head. "I need to think." He walked out to the porch, leaving us in the echo of his footsteps. Lily turned to me, her voice low. "You think you've won something, don't you? You don't know what you've started." I met her gaze and said the words that had been sitting in my chest for months. "I'm not trying to win. I'm just done losing to lies." When the door finally shut behind them, I leaned against the counter, shaking. I hadn't wanted to expose her, but I couldn't let her destroy what I'd built with my son, our bond, our trust, just because she needed someone to blame. And now that the truth was out, there was no going back. The morning after they left, the house felt hollow. My son didn't call. He always called, even if it was just to say he was busy. But that day, nothing. By noon, the silence had turned into worry. By evening, it was heartbreak. I tried to convince myself he needed time, that he was sorting through what he'd heard. But a mother knows when she's being shut out, and that's exactly what was happening. The truth might have set me free, but it also built a wall I couldn't climb. 3 days later, my sister Irene came over. She'd heard whispers already. Word travels fast in families that live too close and talk too much. "People are saying you and Lily had a fight," she said, settling into the kitchen chair. "That you embarrassed her again." "Again?" I asked, the word burning on my tongue. Irene shrugged. "That's what she told Ben's cousin, apparently. Said you've been trying to turn Ben against her for years." I sat down, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have recordings, Irene. Proof. She's been lying." My sister studied me carefully. Then why hasn't Ben said anything? That question hung in the air like smoke. That night I finally broke the silence and called my son. The line rang until his voicemail picked up. Hearing his voice, even through the machine, was enough to make my chest ache. I didn't leave a message. 2 more days passed before he showed up. He looked exhausted, his shirt untucked, his eyes shadowed with something heavier than sleeplessness. "Ben," I whispered, meeting him at the door. He didn't hug me, didn't smile, just stepped inside. "I listened to the recording again," he said, "and I talked to Lily." My stomach twisted. "And she admitted she might have exaggerated," he said slowly. "But she swears she only did it because she feels like you don't like her." "Ben," he lifted a hand. "Mom, please. I'm not saying she's right, but I'm caught in the middle. Every time something happens, it turns into this war between you two." I swallowed hard, fighting the sting of tears. "I'm not fighting her, Ben. I'm protecting myself. She lies about me and you believe her. What was I supposed to do?" He rubbed his face, voice cracking slightly. "I just want peace." "Then tell her to stop attacking me." He didn't answer, just looked at me, torn, lost, then said softly, "I'll talk to her." When he left, I stood by the window, watching his car disappear down the street. The ache in my chest was worse than anger. It was the ache of being right and still losing something you love. The next day, I got a call. Not from Ben, but from Lily. Her voice was calm this time, smooth like glass. "I wanted to apologize," she said. "I shouldn't have said those things. You were right." I didn't believe her, not for a second. But before I could respond, she added, "Let's just move on. For Ben's sake." Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. It wasn't peace, it was strategy. She wasn't apologizing. She was regrouping. And I realized then this wasn't over. She'd lost the first battle, yes, but women like Lily didn't stop when they were cornered. They adapted. So I made a quiet decision. I backed up every recording, every message, every word. I didn't want revenge. I wanted protection. For the next time, she decided to rewrite history, because I knew there would be a next time. A few weeks passed before the next family gathering. Ben's birthday. I almost didn't go. Every part of me wanted to stay home and spare myself the awkward smiles and sideways glances. But something told me if I didn't show up, it would only feed whatever story Lily was weaving next. So I went. I baked Ben's favorite cake, the same chocolate espresso one I'd made for him since he was 12. The frosting didn't settle right. My hands were trembling too much. But I packed it up anyway, drove to their house, and whispered a quiet prayer in the car before stepping out. Lily opened the door. Her smile was perfect, polished, practiced. "Margaret," she said, "you made it. How lovely." I almost laughed. She said it like she was greeting a neighbor, not her husband's mother. Inside, the house buzzed with voices. Friends, co-workers, distant relatives, people I hadn't seen in months. The moment I stepped in, I felt every eye shift toward me, then quickly away. It was subtle, but I'd learned to recognize the weight of gossip. "Mom!" Ben said, hurrying over, relief flickering in his eyes. "You came." "Of course I did," I said, handing him the cake. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." He smiled, tired but genuine. "Thanks, Mom." For a while, things were calm. I chatted with neighbors, refilled drinks, pretended not to notice Lily watching me from across the room like a hawk guarding her nest. Then came the toast. She raised her glass, standing next to Ben. "Before we cut the cake," she said, her voice carrying easily across the room, "I just want to thank everyone for coming, especially Margaret." Every head turned toward me. "She and I haven't always seen eye to eye," Lily continued, her tone dripping with false grace. "But family means forgiveness, doesn't it? I think we've both learned from our misunderstandings." A few people chuckled softly as if they'd been told a private joke. I felt the blood rush to my face. This wasn't peace. It was humiliation dressed in civility. She was performing for them, playing the gracious daughter-in-law, while painting me as the difficult one. I looked at Ben. He gave me a weak smile, the kind that begged, "Just let it go." So I did, for the moment. But later that evening, when most guests had gone and the kitchen had quieted, I noticed Lily whispering with Ben's boss's wife near the back patio. Their voices were low, but one word caught my ear: controlling. That's when I pressed record on my phone again. Not out of spite, out of self-preservation. When I stepped onto the patio, Lily smiled sweetly. "Oh, Margaret, we were just talking about you. I was telling Susan how passionate you are about family. You know, sometimes too passionate." I tilted my head. "Is that what you were saying?" Her smile froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough to see the truth behind it. I didn't argue. I just smiled back. "Well, it's nice to know I'm the topic of conversation." She laughed it off, arm looped through mine, leading me back inside. But I noticed how tight her grip was, how much pressure hid behind the charm. When I got home that night, I played back the recording. You could hear her voice clearly, dripping with condescension as she painted me as the meddling mother-in-law ruining her marriage. I sat there in the dark, listening to her words twist and tangle, and felt something shift inside me, a quiet, deliberate calm. Lily wasn't just lying anymore. She was building a narrative, and people were starting to believe it. But what she didn't know was that every performance, every whisper, every calculated word was already being documented. And one day soon, when the truth finally surfaced, she wouldn't be able to hide behind that smile again, because I wasn't fighting for my pride anymore. I was fighting for my family, and I had the proof to bring it back. Ben called me 2 weeks after his birthday. His tone was clipped, polite, the kind of voice he used when he didn't know what side of the line he was standing on. "Mom," he said, "Lily thinks we should have dinner together, just the 3 of us. She wants to clear the air." Every instinct in me screamed no, but I said yes, because I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. When I arrived at their house that Friday night, the table was already set. Candles, wine, soft music playing. It looked perfect. Too perfect. Lily thrived on control, and this scene was her stage. "Margaret," she greeted, lips brushing my cheek like she was allergic to the contact. "So glad you could make it." I smiled. "You did say you wanted peace." Ben poured the wine, clearly tense. "Let's just have a calm dinner, okay?" For the first half hour, it was civil. Too civil. Every sentence wrapped in politeness. Every smile stretched tight. But then, as soon as Ben stepped into the kitchen to check the roast, Lily leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she hissed. "These recordings, these little games. Ben might forgive you, but I won't. You've made me look like a fool." I kept my voice calm. "You made yourself look that way. I just pressed record." Her jaw tightened. "You don't understand, do you? Ben listens to you. He always has. You could destroy everything I've built with him." I met her glare without blinking. "If your marriage can be destroyed by the truth, Lily, then maybe it wasn't built on much to begin with." Before she could answer, Ben returned, and like flipping a switch, her face softened. She smiled, reached for my hand across the table. "Margaret and I were just saying how we want things to be better between us," she said sweetly. I almost laughed. She never stopped performing. But then she made her move. "Actually," she said, turning to Ben, "I've been thinking, maybe we could all go to therapy together, as a family, to work on boundaries. Your mom and I clearly have unresolved tension." She looked at me, her smile innocent, but her eyes said, "Try to say no and you'll look like the problem again." So I said yes. That's a great idea. What she didn't know was that the recorder on my phone was running again, because after the party, after every lie, I wasn't taking chances anymore. 3 sessions later, the truth started to bleed through. Not because I said anything dramatic, but because liars eventually trip over their own words. In front of the therapist, Lily's tone changed. Too defensive, too rehearsed. She'd try to paint me as overbearing, then contradict herself when Ben reminded her that I rarely called. She'd say I was manipulative, then apologize and claim misunderstanding. Each session chipped away at her story. The therapist, an older woman with calm eyes, began to notice. At the 4th meeting, she said gently, "Lily, you use the word misunderstood often when your mother-in-law brings up something concrete. Can we explore that?" Lily stammered. I just mean, she takes things wrong. She plays the victim," I said quietly. The room fell silent. The therapist didn't speak right away. She just watched Lily, watched the way her jaw tightened, the way she looked everywhere but at me. Ben leaned forward. "Lily, is that true?" And just like that, the mask cracked. She started crying, the same theatrical sobs I'd heard before. But this time, Ben didn't move to comfort her. He just sat there watching, his face pale with realization. When the session ended, he walked me to my car. The night air was cold, sharp with truth. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. Those 2 words nearly broke me." "She's not well," he said. I think I wanted to believe the version of her that she wanted me to see. I didn't see what she was doing to you, to us." I took his hand, tears filling my eyes. "You see it now. That's enough." The next week, Lily moved out of their home for space. She told her friends it was temporary, but everyone could see the cracks she'd tried so hard to hide. The woman who'd built her life on control was finally losing it, not because of revenge, but because of truth. I never released the recordings publicly. I didn't have to. They were only meant for defense, never destruction. Sometimes justice doesn't come in the form of shouting or proof thrown into the world. Sometimes it's quieter, the sound of a lie collapsing under its own weight. And that's exactly what happened. Spring came early that year. The lilacs bloomed outside my kitchen window, before the calendar said they should. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling like my lungs were full of pins. Ben called every few days. At first it was awkward. Small talk about work, about the dog, about anything except what had happened. Then slowly, we began to sound like ourselves again. He came by on Sundays, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with nothing but time. He always stayed for coffee. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch watching the light fade, he said, "Mom, I filed for separation." I didn't speak, just reached over and took his hand. "She's not the woman I thought she was," he continued. "I kept thinking if I loved her enough, if I kept the peace, things would get better. But love doesn't fix lies." I nodded, my throat tight. "You gave her every chance, Ben. That's all any decent person can do." He looked down at our joined hands. "She told people I was turning against her because of you, but now they've seen her temper. They've seen the way she spins things. It's strange. When the truth finally starts showing itself, it doesn't need help. It just shines through." He wasn't wrong. After the therapy sessions, Lily's stories began to unravel on their own. Her friends started pulling away, her co-workers stopped believing her versions of events. What had once been her weapon, her charm, was suddenly transparent. Still, I didn't gloat. There's no joy in watching someone self-destruct, even someone who hurt you. There's only relief and a little sorrow for what could have been different. The final confrontation came quietly. She called me one evening. Her voice was soft, almost unrecognizable. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," she said, "for what I did. I was angry and insecure, and you became my target." I closed my eyes, listening to the silence between us. "Thank you for saying that, Lily. I don't expect forgiveness." "You don't need to ask," I said. "Forgiveness isn't for you, it's for me. I refuse to carry this bitterness any longer." She sniffed, whispered goodbye, and hung up. When I set the phone down, I felt lighter than I had in a year. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the lonely kind of quiet. It was peaceful. Later that week, Ben invited me to a small family dinner. Just a few relatives, no drama, no show. The dining room filled with laughter, the smell of roasted chicken, the clatter of dishes. When he stood to make a toast, he looked at me first. "To truth," he said simply. "To the people who protect it, even when it cost them." Everyone clapped. I just smiled through the tears. As the evening wound down, he walked me to my car. "Mom," he said, "you always said the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to last long enough to be heard. You were right." I touched his cheek. "I only recorded the truth, Ben. You're the one who chose to listen." He smiled, the way he used to when he was a boy, when life was simple and love was easy. "I missed you," he said. "I never went anywhere," I replied. Driving home, I rolled down the window. The night air smelled like rain and lilacs, and something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Lies are loud, but they burn out fast. The truth endures. It waits patiently, quietly until it's needed. And that night, as I parked beneath the soft glow of the porch light, I realized I didn't need to keep any more recordings. The world had finally heard me, and justice, quiet, honest, and long overdue, had already been done.